guys, welcome to my first drive video on this brand new 911 992 generation GT3. This particular press car is in gorgeous shark blue and has a 6-speed manual transmission. The base price for the new GT3 here in the UK is about £130,000. It retains a 4-litre flat-six naturally aspirated engine sitting in its bum. In this particular generation, it now produces 510 horsepower, which is only 10 horsepower up on the previous gen, but it revs to 9,000 RPM. All of that power is fed through that 6-speed manual transmission and goes through the rear tyres alone. This particular car has Cup 2s on it, but for the first time you can actually option Cup 2Rs on a GT3. In line with the rest of the 911 lineup, this latest GT3 has grown in size and in fact is bigger in pretty much every dimension compared to the 991 generation that it replaces. When that new swan neck wing is in its most aggressive setting, this car produces 150% more downforce compared to its predecessor, which is just mind-blowing. Due to that extra aero and double wishbone suspension on the front axle for the first time, this latest generation GT3 will lap the Nürburgring 17 seconds quicker than the car it replaces. Thanks to a lightweight exhaust, lightweight glass, a lightweight battery, carbon fibre bonnet and some removal of the sound deadening, this new generation, although it's bigger and has far more aero and stuff going on under the skin, actually only weighs 5 kilos more than the last generation. I wish that was the weight gain that I had during the past 12 months of lockdown. There are so many amazing details I'd love to talk you through around the outside of the car, but I've only got a couple of hours of light and I want to get this car out on the road. So let's jump inside the cabin, have a quick look around and then take it out for a drive. Wow, 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 wow. Let's fire it up first because it is a little bit warm out there, so. Well, first things first, what a cabin. I mean, the base 911 is lovely and this is just more focused really, but we'll get to all of that very soon. A quick talk about the spec of this particular car. As talked about outside, they start at around £130,000 if you're lucky to be one of those special people on Porsche GB's GT list. But this particular car, it's about £140,000. So I have the options list here, so let's quickly go through them. Shark blue paintwork, I absolutely love it. Obviously it's one of the launch colours for this new GT3, so it's a very familiar sight out there in magazines and YouTube already. That's £2,500 for the paintwork. The leather interior, and there is leather absolutely everywhere in here, with the contrasting shark blue stitching. I think it works so well. It's literally everywhere. It's in the seats, it's on the dash, it's on the door cards, it's everywhere. Really nice, £834. The paint protection foil black, I believe they're the guards that sit just in front of the rear wheels. They're £210. Chrono pack, including preparation for the lap trigger. I am surprised that the GT3 doesn't come with a chrono pack. That's £336, so a must-have option on one of these. Brake calipers, painted in black. This doesn't have the carbon ceramic brakes, which I believe are about an extra £6,500. This has got the standard steel brakes, and to paint those calipers in black, like I have in my M3 competition, £581. The front axle lift, which is kind of a must-have option if you live in a town or around any severe speed bumps, that's £2,200. I'm sure there was a time when the front axle lift was about 800 quid, but maybe I'm getting that wrong. LED matrix headlamps with Porsche dynamic light system, so essentially adaptive lights that go where you're pointing the car, essentially £2,487. Automatic dimming interior and exterior mirrors, Again, something that came standard on my Mark IV Golf GTI back in 2001. That's an extra £387. Park assist rear, including reversing camera, £876. The full bucket seats, carbon, these are £3,788. But in fact, to be fair, the M3 and M4 carbon buckets are £3,500, so not a massive difference in price there. There's a fire extinguisher down there for £135. And the final option is seat belts in shark blue. And although these will probably get quite grubby over time, again, they are just lovely and really make everything pop in here. I love the spec on this car. This doesn't have a cage, so it's not a club sport spec. It's more of a road car with steel brakes and no cage, but I say it's more of a road car. This thing, I'm sure, would be an absolute weapon on the track, and hopefully I get to try either this manual or Porsche GB's PDK version on track one day, because that's where these cars really belong, and that's where you can really push them to at least my limits. Driving position, well, it's close to perfect. I do think that I still sit a little bit lower in my M3 with the carbon buckets, which really shows you how low BMW have managed to mount those seats. It's amazing, and I do bang on about it a lot, but this, well, it's every bit as good, if not a little bit better. I love the vision I have in the 911. It's not too bad for a sports or supercar. Rear view mirror with that massive swan neck. Wing on the back is not brilliant, but you can see most things out of there. The steering wheel, well, I bang on about it all the time. This is Porsche's GT3, and look, it's a lovely thin rim in Alcantara. In fact, it feels very much identical to the one that I have in my M2 competition after Jack had removed all of the padding, etc. It's just such a nice thing to look at, and it's such a nice thing to feel. I've got a drive mode select down here. In fact, I've got lots of menus going on up here. I've got an analog rev counter in the middle, and everything else is digital. I think it works very, very well. We've got Porsche's PCM, which I talked about in my recent 911 video, which works really well. It's not quite in line or as good as BMW's operating system 7 in my opinion, but I'm a BMW owner, so I'm used to that system. I'm sure I'd get more used to Porsche's system if I spent more time in these cars, but everything else is just lovely. And of course, the main center of attraction for me is the fact that this car is a 6-speed manual, and look at that little stubby gear lever. Oh, it feels so good. There's something about a Porsche's manual gearbox, even sort of low-end Boxsters, they just have a lovely metallic feel. It's really, really nice. There's no mistaking that you're in gear. It's just so nice. They don't like to be rushed too much, but there's something they give you back each and every time you change gear. It's just such a nice feeling. It's a satisfaction. It really, really is. I really want to maximize my time with this brilliant car over the next 46 hours or so. It really feels like an achievement being here, sitting here in a Porsche GB GT3. Wow, absolutely amazing. 7 years of really hard work and hard graft. All of you guys and girls watching my content has got me to this position, so thank you very much. Let's get out on the road. What a machine! How is this on sale today with that sound? I struggle so much these days to portray to camera, whether I use a lapel mic or the GoPro mic or whatever. I really struggle to get any kind of sound over to you guys, the audience, because cars are getting less and less noisy because of restrictions. But this Oh, what? It sounds epic. It sounds so raw. It sounds so visceral. Oh. And from my understanding, aside from removing some of the soundproofing in here, that is more to do with the induction sound than outright exhaust sound. Don't get me wrong, it still sounds very good from the outside, but that, oh. First thing to talk about is that 4 litre flat 6, naturally aspirated, of course, revs to 9,000 RPM, and maximum power, which is 510 horsepower, comes in at about 8,400 RPM, so right up the top. And maximum torque comes in at about 6,100 RPM. So down low, typically Porsche GT, there's not actually that much down there. This doesn't weigh much, it's just under 1,500 kilos, I believe. But still, it does lack below 5,000 RPM because there's not much torque down there, and there's certainly not much power down there. But in this sort of car, that's exactly what you want. The gear ratios are very long, just like they are in the GT4 or that 4 litre GTS Cayman that I had. But what a gearbox. It's so nice. The gear stick is just there. It's 6 inches away from this wonderful steering wheel. Oh, I've actually got auto blip turned on because I've only just picked this car up. I will experiment with heel and toe tomorrow. The pedals look like they're spaced out really nicely. Let's just drive around in second gear for a bit just so we can get that sound. Listen, foot on the floor. Oh. At 50 or 60 miles an hour on the road, we're not going to experience much of that crazy downforce we talked about on the outside, but when the rear wing is set to its most aggressive, this car actually produces a staggering 385 kilos of downforce. That's nearly 4 of me sitting on the roof essentially, which is amazing. But what we are going to experience, and what I have been experiencing already in the first 15-20 minutes of driving this car, is the new front end. It's double wishbone for the first time, and I haven't spent too much time in 911s over the years. I've tried that 997.2 GT3 of Tom's last year, as we've already talked about, and I've tried that very recent base level 992, and all 911s that I've tried in between those all suffer from one 911 trait, in my head anyway. You see, the engine sits over the back, it's actually over the rear axle, so they have incredible traction out of corners, etc. The one issue a 911's always had for me is the slightly vague front end. Never feels as planted or as good as other good sports cars out there. It's not taking anything away from how good GT3s of the past have been, but they also have always suffered from a fairly vague front end. This one, with the new double wishbone front end, well, it just doesn't feel like a 911 anymore to me. The front end grip is unreal, and it just feels really positive when you turn it in for the first time. That 911 base model that I had recently, 992 generation, I drove along this very road, and I remember the first, not even the first few hours, the first day, I couldn't get used to the front end of it. It was just a bit weird. I couldn't place it properly, I couldn't trust it, I didn't know where the grip levels were. 2 days in, I was getting used to it because that's just how a 911 feels. It's very different to drive on the road or on the track, but I just couldn't quickly adapt to it. Whereas this, you turn it in, and it just feels so natural, so good. And the only limiting factor is the speed limit, as is the case with so many amazing sports and supercars these days, even hot hatches. I mean, everything's just too fast for the public road. I really want to get one of these out on track because they just feel great. This has the standard steel brake option, and if you've never driven a 911 or a fast Porsche before, if it's on steel brakes, you'll be surprised. They don't initially feel that powerful. They're very like brakes in a racing car. If you want to stop, you need to really push hard. They're not overly servo assisted, which is great because once you're used to that, you can use the modulation. You get lots of feel, and the ABS doesn't kick in too early on these GT cars, so the brakes are really good. One thing I've noticed whilst manoeuvring this car, especially off camera, is when you put it into reverse, it has a soft limiter of about 18 or 1900 RPM. That normally wouldn't be too much of an issue, but because this is a motorsport engine, essentially, it has a light flywheel, it doesn't have much power and torque down low as we talked about, it's very easy to stall. And they weren't excuses for me. I'm guessing that Manual GT3 owners have probably experienced it once or twice, at least in the first couple of days of ownership. So yeah, just beware with that. When you are doing a 3-point turn or whatever, it is very easy to stall. As I say, I'm sure I'll get used to it. I'm not that much of an amateur, but just take note. I think for the last bit of this video, I'm just going to enjoy the drive. I've turned the auto blip off, so I'm going to experiment with heel and toe for the first time in this car. Let's try that coming in here. Oh, easy peasy. What a surprise. The pedal placement is perfect, even in the right-hand drive version, because you do get stung in certain cars, like the GR Yaris is pretty much impossible to do heel and toe, for me anyway, with my big size 12s in the right-hand drive version, but in the left-hand drive car apparently it's a lot easier, and that's the case with a lot of BMWs. But in this car, the pedal box is just brilliant, so you don't have to sacrifice anything to have this car in the UK. Oh, it's just glorious. The ride quality, although it's definitely firm, the spring rate apparently is double of what it was in the previous GT3. It still feels nice and fluid and not overly firm, which is really important. Let's just come in here and do another heel and toe. Oh, lovely, so easy. The gear change is just literally to die for. It's just, I'm going to dream of this in my 2.5 hour sleep I have tonight, because I can't imagine putting the keys down to this car for too long. I'd have to be mad to do that, right? I mean, I'm just sorry if I'm acting a little bit strange and excited, but I am. I'm a kid in a sweet shop right now. Guys, thanks a lot for watching this first drive video on the brand new GT3. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm in love with this car. I need to find £140,000 and someone at a Porsche dealership that's willing to sell me one. Just love it. It's as good as I imagined. Hopefully I'll bring you more content on this car very soon, but I will do an alternative video over on the Yes Auto channel, so check the link to that below in the description. As always, thanks a lot for watching, thanks a lot for the support. I'm in this car because of you lot, so thank you so much. I'll see you at the next video very, very soon. Cheers.